The Prophet ﷺ had true discipline in all aspects of his life. He was disciplined in salah, not like 5 prayers. He had tahajjud, he had to pray tahajjud, right? And also the sunnah prayers, he was disciplined in those. He was disciplined in his sunnah fast, right? Mondays and Thursdays, the 3 white days in the month, and even beyond that, right? He was disciplined in his time management. Not only was he the prophet, but he was the leader of Medina, the political leader of Medina. He was the military leader. He was a judge. He was a teacher. He was a husband to 9 wives. Like, he was disciplined even in his eating, bro. He never even ate to his full, subhanAllah, right? He ate for fuel, not for pleasure. Now, he was the perfect role model. And we can't, obviously, we can never get to his level, we can't get to his level, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still makes him the example. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, right? He's still the role model, right? Why is he the role model if he's so perfect? Because he's still a human, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sent him as a human. We're supposed to take him, even though we can't get to his level, we have to still follow his path, right? We have to do our best. That's the point of his deen. It's not to be pessimistic and say, oh, we can never get there. Rather, we do our very best, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his hope and for his mercy to complete it, subhanAllah. Just like how we'll never enter into Jannah, with our deeds, we're going to enter in with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah, right? We can never get there with our deeds. That's why we have to, even though we can't get there with our deeds, we still have to do our best in our deeds to earn the rahmah of Allah. Now, of the blessings that we can take him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a role model is that he was perfect, but he was also a human. Like, he had to eat, he had to sleep, he was a human, right? He wasn't like an angel. Actually, the Quraysh, they would mock and they would say, وَقَالُوا لَوْلَا أُنزِلَ عَلَيْهِ مَلَكٌ. Why didn't he send an angel? Why doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send an angel? If he's Allah, right? Why doesn't he send an angel? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he responds to this. He says, وَلَوْ جَعَلْنَاهُ مَلَكًا لَجَعَلْنَاهُ رَجُلًا. If we were to send him as an angel, he would still be a man. Like, we sent Jibreel down, right? Because Jibreel, obviously, he came down, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, on numerous occasions, right? But Jibreel wasn't like a flying angel with like a bunch of wings and stuff like that. Rather, he came in as the form of a man, right? Now, even though we can't get to his level, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his daraja, we still have to do our best to become as close to and follow his path, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how do we actually go about gaining discipline in Islam? Like what can we actually do? Well, I'm going to go over 3 main principles, inshallah ta'ala, about how to actually gain discipline in Islam. But firstly, we have to go over what discipline is in the first place. We have to actually define it. So discipline in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions in the Quran ayah. He says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. He says that as for the one who fears standing in front of his master, on the Day of Judgment, who fears standing in front of his master, وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى, and he restricts and he holds himself back from his desires, right? This is a key part. فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Then Jannah is going to be his abode, is going to be his final home, subhanAllah. He's going to enter into Jannah, right? This is very interesting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions that the one who enters Jannah is the one who holds himself back from the desires, right? Desires, they lead you to misguidance. Ya أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Allah says, have you seen the one? Have you looked at the one who, taken his own desires as his master, as his God, subhanAllah, right? When you follow your desires and your whims and your desires, right? One day you go one way, and the other day you go the complete opposite way. It's just however you just do whatever you want. But discipline, right, is holding yourself back, and having an objective, having a goal behind it, right? Since we feel like in the ayah, right? وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ, right? As for the one who fears standing in front of his master, right? Since we fear standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now we have to do actions so that we are, on the Day of Judgment, we're entered into Jannah, right? Our deeds are, enough, that we please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? We have like an actual goal. We have an intention before it, right? Discipline is basically doing what you need to do, even if your desires feel like you want to do this way or that way, right? That's why the first step of discipline is intention, right? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. That all deeds, all actions are based off of their intentions, right? For example, the Prophet ﷺ, he's the best example of, discipline. Why? Because he had the greatest mission, he had the greatest intention of fulfilling the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of relaying the message. That was his mission. So when his whole entire, Quraysh, his whole entire village, expelled him, when they persecuted him, right? He still kept on going. He said, if you gave me the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, I still wouldn't leave this off until I have relayed the message. SubhanAllah. Since he had the greatest why, the greatest intention, so something of, relaying the message, the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Spreading Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's religion. That's why he had so much success in his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why Islam spread literally all over the world, subhanAllah, and is still here today, 1400 years ago. My name is still Muhammad 1400 years later because of that man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So having the intention is the first step of discipline, because when you have that why, any what, any how, anything that comes in the way is completely disregarded, right? You have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the intention, right? You make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now he helps you, right? You do everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second level of building discipline in our deen is consistency. Training yourself to actually do what you need to do. Now you have the intention, you have the goal. Now you need to train yourself to do what you need to do to get to that goal, to fulfill that intention, to fulfill that why. The Prophet ﷺ, he may famously mention, the best of deeds are those that are consistent, even if they're small. Discipline's a skill, right? Your discipline is going to be increased by the reps. It's not just a one-off thing like, oh, I have discipline versus I don't have discipline. Rather, it's how disciplined are you? It's a spectrum, right? Some people are more disciplined than others. Discipline is a skill that you need to level up with those repetitions, with that consistency. And also, discipline isn't just, disciplining yourself to do something like, oh, I'm going to be disciplined right now, let me go do the workout. Rather, discipline could also be something that you hold yourself back, just like the eye, when who holds himself back from his desires, right? For example, holding yourself back from, foods that are not good for you. You're not fueling yourself, right? Just food that you want to eat, some candy, some cookies, whatever, right? That could be holding yourself back, discipline, right? But disciplining yourself, let's say you don't feel like praying, right? You don't feel like praying, but you go do it anyways. That's discipline. That's disciplining yourself to do it. There's disciplining yourself to not do something, right? You're online, you're looking at some videos. There's like, maybe there's some girls, right? And you look away, right? You lower your gaze, actually. That's discipline also, holding yourself back, right? So discipline can go both ways. And now once you start training yourself, being more consistent, getting those reps at the discipline, leveling up the skill, then at some point, it's not only just one habit that you get disciplined at, but it becomes multiple habits. Like, for example, you're disciplined in waking up on time for Fajr, right? You wake up for Fajr at the same time. Now, at some point, you might be, going to the masjid for Fajr, right? And then maybe you're doing morning adhkar or Quran after Fajr, right? And now those three come together. That's a whole routine. That's not even just consistency in one habit. It's becoming a routine now, which is the third principle, routine. Once you get to a certain level, habits start coming together and you start being disciplined in a whole entire time block. And when you get disciplined at a whole entire time block, whether it's the morning, whether it's, coming back from school, coming back from work, whether it's at night, then, you get consistent at those. On the days where you don't feel like doing one of those habits, you've already done it so many times, you're like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna do it anyways. I have this, I've been doing it, I know that's better for me. You just do it, right, at some point. And then that's another level of discipline, doing it when you don't feel like it. For example, you get back home from school, and you usually work out after you come back from school. On one of the days you kind of feel a little bit tired and you don't want to do it, but you still do it anyways, right? That's discipline, right? And that's why actually working out is very good, because essentially you're physically pushing yourself. Your body doesn't like it. Shaitan definitely doesn't like it when you have to do, reps of weight, of your body weight, whatever. You're physically stressing yourself, right? You're physically stressing yourself. You're physically harming yourself, right? And you still do it anyways. You go over your body's primal function of liking comfort, right? You walk towards that discomfort. For every single rep, you go closer to failure. And that's why working out is very important, right? You're literally building your discipline, right? And also you're building your strength, right? You're building your strength, you're building your health, right? And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. Take advantage of 5 before 5 happen, right? One of those 5 is your health before your sickness, subhanAllah, right? Your body's an amana, right? And a lot of people say this, but I want you to actually think about it, right? We literally, our whole entire body was given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're going to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's going to take our bodies back. We have to give it back to him just as he gave it to us. He gave it to us strong and pure, right? He gave it to us healthy, right? We have to give it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that same way. It's a disrespect to your creator to give your body back fat and unhealthy and completely just ruined, right? The same way if you give your friend gives you your phone and you give it back to him and the screen is broken, right, and it barely even works, that's disrespectful, right? We have to take care of our bodies. Our bodies are actual amana, it actually belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to be training. We have to be leveling up our discipline, right? Training helps with our discipline. Training helps with our health, even mindset, right? It helps in all aspects of Islam, right? You have to take care of your body in this deen. And And if you want me to personally help you, like take steps to train like the Prophet ﷺ, train to be like the Prophet ﷺ as the role model instead of, bodybuilders or anything like that, then you can click on the link in the description right now and I can personally help you, take steps to actually train for the prophetic build, training to be like the Prophet ﷺ, in terms of not just physique or anything like that, but also the strength, the holistic health behind that. Everything that comes behind, training to be like the Prophet ﷺ. And it's not enough for you to know cookie cutter stuff like, oh, I need to get good at push-ups and pull-ups, or it's not enough for you to know that. You need to have a program that actually will get you results for you, something that actually works for you, not just some cookie cutter stuff, right? You have goals of becoming like the Prophet ﷺ, right? Cookie cutter stuff will not get you there, right? So if you want, then you can click on the link in the description. I can actually get on a call with you. We can talk, I can get your information, and I can even coach you through not only giving you the action steps to take to train for the prophetic build, but also making sure you actually go through it, So if you want to actually start your prophetic build journey today, then you can click on the link in the description right now. Assalamu alaikum.